Hey, we're here on the podcast with Nick Kraus, who is an accomplished entrepreneur. He's a business leader. He is the founder and CEO of Kraus Marketing, and that's an award-winning agency known for its exceptional marketing strategy and creative. And he also has a book called The Sharkbite Method, which teaches you how to build brand value, how to shorten those sales cycles, and how to drive leads to create revenue. So we're going to get and dive into some of these fun secrets about seeking to stay ahead in the ever-evolving business landscape, to get to those goals, to have some fun, to make some money, to build that business, to change lives. Nick is the guy to talk to. So Nick, glad to be speaking with you.
Thank you, Robert. Glad to be here.
So I'm glad to have you. And so we introduced you a little bit, hyped you up, and in your own words, what currently has you turned on, excited, energized?
I'm glad that we're getting into, I can't believe to say it, 2025 here. The world has gone through a lot of things, and I think that just there's movement and positivity, and now whether I'm going to say off of that one, but what has me excited right now is just momentum of business and of where we're going.
And that idea of momentum, it took me a while to get into that. Like when I was younger, I thought, okay, well, I'll make this amount of money and I'll do this, and then I'll take a break. And when I got older, I was like, taking a break is, and a lot of times a cop out, saying like, well, I need to like mentally recharge my batteries or something after getting there with this project, going to the next. And as soon as and then at that point, like smartphones picked up, and then you could just like stop and like type a document on your phone. And I was like, hey, there's like you have the shark bite method. There's that saying of like sharks are always moving, right? You stop and you die, and sometimes it's hard to pick back up again, right? And so I tell myself, with the craziness of the world you mentioned, and the social media feeds and all that, having to like learn all this stuff about AI, it's like if we can turn it into a positive, then we don't have to like play stop and go or play catch up. We can kind of like use it to our advantage and build a business and kind of strengthen the muscle. And so I'm all about avoiding those cop outs and learning from the greats such as you who have accomplished so many amazing things. And so what have you accomplished? What is your company all about? What should we be super impressed by?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So Kraus Marketing is a 40-person agency. I founded myself. I started on credit cards. I started during the Great Recession back in 2008. I left a corporate job. They were willing to transfer me. Everyone was getting laid off. People don't remember these times. Some young people don't understand these times. But everyone was getting laid off. There was also the opportunity to go on 2 years of paid leave and money from the government to go to college. It all sounds crazy, but it's true. And a lot of people took that opportunity to just basically do nothing. And I saw a lot of people never get back into a career. I started Kraus Marketing that year. I had an opportunity to transfer. I was one of 10 people out of 500 that was offered a transfer. I didn't take it. And I started my company. I took a layoff on a Friday, September 26th. On September 29th, 2008, I walked the downtown of Morristown, New Jersey, and knocked on every single door in that downtown. And I said, hi, my name is Nick Kraus. I just started a new advertising agency here in Morristown. Nice to meet you. And I handed out brochures and business cards. And I didn't take a day off. I didn't take 1 second off. So that resonates with me huge, Robert. And you know what? I had no money. I was 26 years old, and I had credit cards. And me and my wife we just grinded for 4 or 5 years of trauma. And now, things have changed, and it's the long game. A lot of people don't play it. A lot of people want that instant success, but we played the long game, and it's been really paying off for us.
Well, this is inspiring, and I agree with you that a lot of people they want the instant success. They don't want to work for it, and I think we all underestimate how much work is required to get there. I think that when you think, say, in the example of like landing a local client, right? There's a thinking of, okay, well, let me look in the yellow pages and let me choose like 10 people, and maybe next week I'll call one of them. And you're like, I'll go everywhere downtown. I'll like see just like what there is, what the results, the data, who bites, so to speak, to use your shark bite terms.
Yep.
And I remember like Grant Cardone was saying like one time like he like visited every business in Miami. And like I believe him, right? I believe he went to like is that 10,000, 20,000
Yeah.
businesses? Like
You
I
know,
believe he like contacted every single
the
one.
cool thing is that Monday, while everyone took their layoff, everyone took their week's vacation and a couple years off, went back to school for yada yada yada. I actually made $13,000 sale, a $13,000 sale that Monday, the first day I opened my business, and that was huge for me. $13,000. Well, I was only making $75,000 a year in corporate, and then I was making $50,000 on the side. I was freelancing already, so but that $13,000, I mean, that was just huge to me.
That's life changing and it's encouraging. And so, what was the deliverable? You make the $13,000 sale. What's the package?
Yeah,
What
so
do you
that
have to
was a
do to earn that?
restaurant.
Yeah.
It's very much what we do right now. So that was building awareness for a restaurant and getting people in the door. It was a complete recession, and it was hard for people to make money at the time. We would pack that restaurant. We got live music, and we built awareness around this beautiful piano bar in downtown Morristown. But nowadays, what we do is the same thing. We build brands, and we build awareness around those brands. Um, so beautiful websites that speak to your audience, and resonate with that audience and your communication goals. And then we build awareness around it through SEO, social media, pay per click, and then of course paid media like CTV. Do you know what CTV is, Robert? It's
No.
it's like paid advertising for like Hulu and Netflix and like everywhere, like Roku, Fire Stick. It's commercials on your streaming device that you can see, and you can get to your target audience just like social media, uh, with the uh, targeting behaviors and interests and geos and demos that, unlike traditional commercials where you just buy inventory around specific shows, this finds the people where they are. CTV is huge for us. It's been doing great. We have a studios division that creates commercials, and we use CTV to get those commercials directly in front of our target audience.
That's amazing that you can just tap into their pay-per-click network, and it's like back in the good old days when you would have like the public access channel, and they'd like have the local commercials or your your local news channel. A lot of that's gone away because people are like tuning into the streaming, the Hulu, but it's like the advertising has figured out a way to fill that gap to get that back. Where even though maybe you're not tuning into the local airwaves, the TV station, but you're streaming, then because you're in this geographic region, this zip code, then it runs that ad on Hulu. And so you kind of run these amazing marketing campaigns, right? You have the website, you have the social media, you have the paid advertising. And so when you are talking to a business, a restaurant, a club, and you're telling them about all these things that are possible, like what's the usual pushback? What are the objections that you have to overcome when selling this cool idea?
So it's always about ROI, right? The clients always ask, well, what's the ROI? And I would beg for everyone to understand that the valuation of your business and your organization has an ROI with a good digital presence. So imagine your company, no digital presence. No one's ever seen your website, or your website sucks, or both. And you're trying to sell that company. Do you think that company's worth a little or a lot? It's worth a little, very little. Now you have a great digital presence. Even if your company isn't getting that much revenue, even if you're not making that much money, if you got a great digital presence, that brand is worth something. So I say to companies, and usually what is happening is you're making money. That's the reason that you're coming to a person like me. You have, 10 million, 100 million, a billion in revenue, right? And if your brand has no digital presence, then your brand is worth a lot less. Now, if your brand has a digital presence, it's worth a lot more. So I say to those people that ask me about ROI, the valuation of your organization, your company, has an ROI alone with a good digital presence. Of course, they want leads though, Robert. And that's the one part that, all we can do is deliver, and we deliver as best we can. And, you get credit for, uh, from good companies and good partners. They'll give you all the credit in the world. And from other partners, they'll tell you that, yeah, of course, business is up 20%, but we don't think it's from you. And it's like, okay, well, then how is it up? But that's the life we lead because we're digital marketers. As digital marketers, we have pinholed ourselves to KPIs and to being able to show them ROI. And that pigeonhole is strong. But I'm trying to educate my clients on just the value of a great brand, and I think that my best clients really understand that.
Wonderful. And yeah, and you have the people that are for you and the people that aren't for you. And the people that are for you, you work your magic, you make all these different moving parts work together, and you show them some results. And so I'm curious about the struggles, the drama, the difficulties. And so when you have been growing this company, getting these clients, maybe running these campaigns, it's never a start to finish straight line, right? There's always things that go wrong. So is there anything that comes to mind that would be fun to talk about as far as just the struggles, the missteps, either like in a campaign or in your journey overall?
Yeah, so I tell people that the first 5 years, I used to tell people, I don't really say it anymore, but it's still true. The first 5 years of my business were nothing short of traumatic. Uh, I couldn't sleep. Barely had enough money. I had a new kid. I married my beautiful wife, and I had a mortgage I could barely afford. Putting food on the table was nearly impossible. And I remember my father telling me about during the Depression how spilt milk would get you beaten. And I just remember, of course, I would never um, think of that, but it's just, I just remembered eating noodles and canned soup. And I don't think people really understand how hard it can be to start something. But we went through that, and we had times where it just, you're going to the grocery store to trying to find something that's cheap. And I remember my father telling me, Nick, potatoes and cabbage are always cheap. And it's like, and it was a crazy time to think of that. Now, I, I am fortunate enough, and I am also a little bit gluttonous enough to go to a restaurant every single day. It's one of the things I love to do is go and eat out. Um, but yeah, it was a very traumatic time to start the company. And I tell you why, Robert. It's more. It wasn't that I couldn't eat canned soup. It wasn't that I couldn't pay my mortgage. I could get that all done. It was, for me, everyone wanted to see me fail. No one believed it could happen. That's what they wanted to see. And people will tell you over and over again, what are you doing? You're an idiot. Why would you do that? You're never going to make it. And they'll say it in nicer ways. Some will say it directly. Some said it directly to me. Some say it in nicer ways. Some will laugh at you. And that was the biggest fear. That was probably the biggest part of the trauma, was no one getting your back. And guess what? Now everyone has my back. Big fucking surprise, right? So that was probably the hardest. I'll tell you a story about my company, though. Fail forward story was, we launched a new website. It was back in 2016, 2017 for Kraus Marketing. When we launched it, the phones went dead, and I couldn't understand. We had good inbound leads. I had worked hard on our SEO and our social media for years, and I didn't realize how good our SEO was until we launched that new website, and the phones went dead. And me and my wife struggling to figure it out. We found out we had a no crawl on our website for, so the bots couldn't actually redirect our website, or put it into Google search results. And we fixed that. And I said, Kraus Marketing now is the number one client of Kraus Marketing. Whatever we do for our best clients, we are going to do for ourselves. And since then, it's been astronomical how much we have grown. I mean, the inbound leads are insane. We write as many blogs, we do as many webinars, we wrote a book, we do as much social media as some of the biggest brands in the world because we believe in what we do, and it's been amazing for our business. That was a fail forward moment where we launched a website and and our phones went dead, and I realized how important our own digital marketing was to our company. And I said, let's do it even better. Let's go even harder. And it's been really great.
That's easy for a lot of business owners to forget. Be your number one client. That way you
Right.
get the bugs worked out. And I imagine that there's a perception factor as well. Like imagine being an SEO agency with bad SEO. Imagine being a paid ad agency not running paid ads. Like
Yeah.
eat your own dog food. Like be your number one client, and that way people can see. Like you don't even really have to. You don't have to do as much teaching, right? They can just look and see what you have going on as far as your own social media posting, what's on your website, and say, hey, cool. They know what they're doing as far as their own site. I want this for myself as well. And that's also really powerful what you have to say about the people that you hang around with, right? Because like we mentioned before we started recording, you love Think and Grow Rich. And there's this quote that like finds its way back into my brain on a weekly basis, which is something like the guaranteed way to fail is to listen to your friends and family. And it's like because they will kill your dreams, right? They will try to keep you safe, and they think that they're doing you a favor. They're trying to keep you from falling off a cliff and down a ledge. And it's like you can either choose like change the people that you're around, or you can let what who's around just kind of beat you down. And it's like that's why like it's so important for people like you to be on podcasts, because there's someone out there that maybe they are listening to the naysayers and it's getting to them, and they need someone on their side such as you who's been through some of these things to say like, hey, I've been through the scrappy years, I figured some of this out, stress is okay, we'll get to the other side, we solve some problems, get the math problem solved, figure it out, get some clients. And so as far as people doing like this business journey, right, this entrepreneurial journey, all kinds of spaces, like do you think is there like a missing piece, or is there something that's maybe not talked about enough that you've gone through and you're like, man, I wish I knew this when I started, and people are still maybe missing it today?
So yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind. So I think I see a lot of young entrepreneurs that want something so damn unique, like they're creating their own Facebook, they're creating their own, Instagram, TikTok, right? They have this software, the SaaS, they want something so beautiful, so perfect, and so unique. And I don't believe that that is required. I think you just create a better mousetrap. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that your unique selling proposition. We all talked USPs in college, were, was so important. And it is, you have to differentiate yourself from the competition, but you don't have to like be an inventor. You don't have to be Elon Musk. You could just be the guy that really delivers services way better than the next company, and you'll be very successful. Another one that people, and you can never teach this, and this is a small company game, is cash flow. And you can't teach this. This is a talent that is required, um, to run a company, especially if you don't have big investors, which most of us will not and will not have. And if you do, you'll probably squander the money anyway for that reason. The cash flow game is insane, and understanding how to get money in so you could pay your bills, your COGs, of course, your expenses like your employees, is something that can never be taught. It's just something you have to go through, understand, and figure out. And I think that, um, a misconception is revenue. That revenue equals money, and it doesn't. My wife has an uncle that told me, Nick, it's not about how much money comes through your hands, is how much money you keep in your hands. And it's a strong thing. There's cash flow and there's profits too, and how much money you keep is a really important thing. And he only had to say that once to me. I'll never forget it, because now I think about that money that comes through. Once you get a few employees, several employees, dozens of employees, You have high COGs. Like, I mean, that money, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars could fly through your hands, or you could capture it. And capturing it is one of the hardest parts. And I think that's another misconception, is that people think that revenue equals profits, and it just doesn't.
So some new skills are required, right? Some new mindsets and diving into the numbers and some awareness. And also, I imagine some kind of like thick skin. And we've talked a lot in our discussion about dealing with stress. And money just does weird things to our emotions, right? When there's money coming in, money going back out, it can feel like you're on this roller coaster. But if you say, well, hey, that's a normal part of business, like blood pumps through your body. You're not saying every second that you're alive, like, oh my gosh, this is going through my arm, it's coming, it's going. That's just, it's part of your business being an alive beast. And so these are some good insights that we need to have this momentum. And there is the downside to too much uniqueness, because it then too much uniqueness makes it too much about you and not about them and the people that you're trying to help. And man, you talk about Elon Musk. The first electric car was invented in 1910, and even two other guys invented Tesla, and then he came on board. And so nothing is original, right? Everything is kind of built on other things. And some of these most successful companies, someone acquired them and then build them up into something better. So there's many paths to success. And I want to make sure near the end here that we mention your book, The Sharkbite Method, because a
Yes.
book is a great way for someone to get to know someone and get some actionable tips. So tell us about why is this Sharkbite Method exist, and what problem does it solve?
Yeah, so the Sharkbite method exists because we really wanted to tell people about our proprietary method of doing digital marketing and our strategy. Actually, if you read this book, you could have a digital marketing agency just like Kraus Marketing. You follow the book. We laid it all out, you know. The reason we wrote it was for organizations to understand that proactive marketing and advertising strategies are really important. The bigger the organization, I find the more reactive they are, and the less proactive they are. And you walk into companies with CMOs that have 20, 30, 40 and more marketing employees in-house, and you talk to them about what their cyclical strategy is, and they say, well, X, Y, and Z. Then you ask them what their content calendar is, and this is a big chapter in the Sharkbite Method. I think it's chapter 3 and 4. It's about the creative brief and creating a content strategy. And when you ask them about their content strategy and their content calendar, they say, well, we can't have a content calendar because we have too much going on. And I think that is baloney. And I think that if you read the Sharkbite Method, you will understand how to create a content calendar. When we created this method, it's evolved over years, just like the shark as an apex predator who's evolved over many years to be the apex predator of the ocean. The Sharkbite Method has evolved over the last 2 decades at Kraus Marketing, where it's the apex strategy for digital marketing. And one of the first things that I did was understand that publications back in the day, when there was actually print, they would tell me, this is our content calendar for the year. And they'd give you the 12 months of content, and it was just basically an outline of what they were going to talk about. So every major publication knows what they're going to actually publish going for at least 12 months. As an advertiser and a PR agency at the time, we were able to say, okay, based on that month, we want to be in that publication. I then reverse engineered that for our digital strategy and our clients. And I said, okay, well, why do they do that? And the reason they do that is because they know their audience wants to hear about certain things during certain times of the year. Plus, it allows them to be very proactive with their content and efficient. So for our clients, and the Sharkbite Method teaches you, is we ask them, and this is how you do it. You start with 4 quarters, right? So you have 4 quarters of business. What happens cyclically in those 4 quarters of business? How are your clients and your prospects interacting with your company during those 4 quarters? So you can come up with things like trade shows, or you can come up with different strategies and sales during different times of the year. And you say, now you break it down from quarters down to months, and you say, okay, based on those quarters and those cyclical business habits, what are content that they want to receive during each month. And then you have a topic for each month that you're going to talk to your audience about that you know they want to engage with. And then from there, you turn it into long form content, short form content for social media. You turn it into videos, infographics, landing pages, website pages, case studies, webinars, and you break it down even more detail. If you plan 12-month calendar, you could do it in probably an hour or less. You could do it in probably 30 minutes or less, especially with some really smart people in the room. And then you only have to do about 3 months at a time. I'd recommend, Robert, that you do 3 months in detail at a time, because then you're just waking up and you're executing. If you're waking up and thinking about what you're going to do today, you do not have a strategy. And that's what we stress to our clients. And that's what the Sharkbite Method teaches you, is how to create a strategy that's efficient, that you could wake up and you could execute on every single day. Because the thinking about it is the part that causes procrastination and causes missed deadlines and causes nothing to happen.
I love it. And I love your passion with this. And I think you're so right that this context switching between the executing and the planning, so many business owners are flying by the seat of their pants in this way. And it seems to me like if you were driving your car down the street while you were like, hey, I want to eat at dinner, but should I eat there? Should I eat there? Oh, I missed that turn. It's chaos. And it seems really stressful unnecessarily versus you say, hey, I eat at a restaurant every day and I want to eat at this place for lunch. So I know which way I'm going. And you get there and it's like less stressful for everybody. And you get some things accomplished and you have a delicious meal. And in this case, the delicious meal is that you get all this content figured out and you have more of a focused strategy. I mean, even as you were mentioning there about the possibilities, like, so there's like trade shows, right? Say there's this trade show in the summer and you say, well, now if we're going to be speaking there or attending there, then we can work backwards and post about that and network with these other people and just kind of have more of a plan and things leading to others, as opposed to just kind of, what will we do today? What will we do this week? Doesn't sound like a real business. And so people need to check out the Sharkbite Method, and they also need to check out krausgroupmarketing.com. And why should they go there? What's the sort of ideal client fit? Who's the kind of person with a problem in their business that you can help solve?
Yeah, it's a good question. So small, mid-sized companies usually hire us for our flat rate monthly digital marketing plans, our website projects, our branding projects, our studios projects, which is like videography. And then large enterprise clients love us for our ability to fill their bandwidth and capabilities. So they have those dozens of marketing people, but they never have enough bandwidth. And they definitely don't have all the capabilities. So they use us on a monthly basis to fill those areas. And we have a big enough staff that helps them out with that and that can do it efficiently.
Very nice. So if that is you, if that's your company, if you're stuck in some of those areas, if you want to have more bandwidth, if you want to get better results, if you want to have just more brains on the problem, then krausgroupmarketing.com. They're your people that can make a brand impact. They produce award-winning creative for clients across all industries. And you can go to their website and just check out their beautiful website, right? Stuff scrolls, stuff pops out, there's videos. You can have fun and see about what they've done for others and imagine what they can do for you, and find what they've done in aviation, cannabis, entertainment, hospitality, logistics, energy sustainability, so many cool industries, and then go and contact Nicholas and his team and make some things happen, right? Have some fun. And as we're wrapping up our conversation here, Nick, as people are checking out the Sharkbite Method book, krausgroupmarketing.com, it's time to put you on the spot a little bit. I like to end my shows by asking my guests about a fun quote or lesson that has helped them in their journey that they can pass along to us. So what comes to mind as far as a fun quote or lesson?
So one of the best lessons that I have is about self-manifestation, where you could manifest literally anything you want. Napoleon Hill talks about it in Think and Grow Rich. It's one of the chapters in his books. And the first part is being able to think it. So you got to be able to like think it. You got to tell yourself this, that you could think it, and then you got to say it, then you got to speak it, and then you got to put it into action. And If you're able to think it, then you're able to do it. But unless you tell yourself that you can, you won't. And it goes back to that, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So if you think you can get it done, and you could literally manifest reality. But people don't believe that. They believe that they have to be whatever someone tells them to be and whatever this world tells them to be. But you can manifest reality, and it just starts with a thought. And then that thought has to turn into action. And if you haven't read Think and Grow Rich, that would be one of the books I would go to as a young entrepreneur. And I would, really sit and think about some of those different chapters because as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as anyone trying to further their career, if you could think it, then you could actually make it happen. And it goes back to sensei. When I did karate, he used to tell me, he goes, Nick, if someone tells you that something is wrong and you know it's wrong, then no, you know that. It's a weird thing to say, right? But there's a sixth sense that we all have, and it's your gut. And a lot of us don't listen to our gut. We listen to people. We listen to words that are out there. But we all have this gut. When you make something happen and something happens positive in your life because you thought about it, remember that feeling. That feeling is your gut. And that is an ability that a lot of people don't have. And it's something natural and amazing that humans are able to tap into, but we don't, because we're so up here that we never think with here. And if you think with here and then you trust it, you could actually make it happen. So a little bit deep, but I really believe it. And I don't think that everyone wants you to know that.
And I think it's huge that many times when we tell ourselves we can't do something or we have this limiting belief, like it's in our head, but it didn't come from us. It came from our parents or someone else, some friend, and it got stuck in us. And I think that this is a really important message to tell yourself that you can do it. So many people, they're not practicing this, right? They're not making this a habit. So tell yourself you can do it, think it, say it aloud, do it, and crush some goals, get to some KPIs and figure it out. And also what's important is to go to krausgroupmarketing.com and also check out the Sharkbite Method from Nick Kraus, because some of these things that we talk about, like content calendar, we might have heard it, we might have forgot about it, we might need a refresher on it, and even more importantly, we might need to know how Kraus Group Marketing does it, so that way if we recommend someone to them or we use them ourselves, then we kind of are pre-educated about the possibilities and what we need to know. And so the Sharkbite Method from Nick Kraus and krausgroupmarketing.com, that's Kraus, and we will see you there. And thank you, Nick, for stopping by and just dispensing some raw, vulnerable stories, some Think and Grow Rich advice, some business advice. I really appreciate it.
You got it, Robert. I appreciate you having me.
On how AI gets deployed in business. Her website is knownwell.com. She has an excellent podcast, and we are going to find out some secrets about AI, client intelligence, so much more. So, Courtney, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Excited to have you. And so speaking of excitement, we hyped you up a little bit for the audience, read your bio, but in your own words, what has you fired up? What are you super excited about lately?
Well, I mean, obviously AI is all the hype is about AI, but I think some of that hype is very legitimate. I think we are at a point in history that is a really special time to be in business and really having to figure out how we're going to deploy AI in a really way that really elevates humanity and elevates our businesses. And so I think that's a really exciting thing. Of course, we've got to do it well. But it's one of those moments, it's kind of like at the end of the game in a tight basketball match, I want to have the ball in my hands to go make that last shot. And I think for a lot of business leaders, we're thinking about AI that way as well of, okay, we've learned over the last couple of decades of other digital transformations to kind of prepare us for this time. And I personally think it's an exciting time.
I agree. It is a tool to be used properly, especially when you think about like ChatGPT took up all of the attention about the possibilities of AI, even though AI has been around for years, right?
Right.
Amazon's been using it, voice
Yeah.
recognition, but like ChatGPT stole the spotlight, and those that first year or so, it sure put out some garbage text, didn't it? And you can almost like see if it's ChatGPT generated. And like, we're both podcasters. I'm sure you get pitches for guests, and I get all these like AI written pitches, and I'm just like, okay, I can tell it's AI. I'll skim it. I guess I'll still take the person because I get what they meant to say. And then I'm also excited about, for example, like following up with guests, right? I have 1,200
Right.
guests, and I just go and get all this stuff cranked out, get all these sort of personalized messages, but I still say like, okay, well, I'll go and I'll add my humanness to it, and then but I'll
Yeah.
still the end result will be like 10x, 20x productivity in the end. So, but I'm always like kind of navigating this very delicate balance between, well, I don't want to get left behind. I want to be productive, but I also don't want to just crank out a bunch of garbage articles,
Right.
garbage follow-ups. I want to use this tool properly. And so to help us understand what this known well tool is, my understanding is it like helps you deal with your customers and clients. Is that right?
That's exactly right. When we launched Known Well, we had hundreds of conversations with professional service leaders. And, if you think about a really small, let's just say a marketing firm or a small technology service firm, you usually have somebody in that company that is just really good at sitting in the middle of all of the customer interactions. You know, they're in the meetings, they see the emails, but they're really good at just intuitively being like, hey, I think something's up with the Frost account. And I think we should get our CEO to go have a conversation with their CEO. The problem is with professional service companies, it's high touch lots of relationships with lots of relationships on the other side. And as a professional service company starts to scale, that person sitting in the middle of all those different interactions and being able to intuit what needs to happen starts to break down. It becomes impossible as you scale. And so what we started to build at Known Well was, well, now we have AI that can actually sit in the middle of all of that communication exhaust, all the structured data, the external data, and actually help prompt as humans, like, hey, there's something going on with this account that you need to be aware of, and really spur that action that way. And so we think it's going to be game changing for professional service companies, because unlike SaaS or e-commerce that have all that rich transactional data, you just don't have that on the professional service side. You have rich relationships. And so we're really excited to deploy our technology into those companies. And again, the whole premise is using the technology to actually elevate what only the human can do, which is be in relationship with other humans.
I love it. Clone yourself in a way, and looking at the parts of your business that would not normally scale without AI and using it to do a better job. And so when you talk about
Exactly.
professional service companies, what industries are that? Because I feel like I might know what that means, but I want to be sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for our company, the ideal fit is really those professional service companies that have a reoccurring structure and are really focused on executing on behalf of a company. They're an extension of the company that they're serving. So it's marketing firms, it's accounting services, financial services, it's technology services. Those types of companies within that broader bucket of professional services are the ones that we've built this product for.
Wonderful. And so my next kind of item in the mental agenda is understanding the user story. And so say you have some accounting firm, marketing firm, and they're using your tool. Where does the data come from? Is it like looking at the email, the communication? Like what are the
Yeah,
inputs and outputs?
exactly. It's a great question. And so a lot of times we don't think of our email or Zoom calls as data, but they actually are. They're actually incredibly rich data sources for our companies. And so for Known Well, what we do is we bring in all of your email, all of your Slack, whatever your communication channels are, as well as any video technology that you're using with your meetings and with your clients. And then all of your structured data that already exists today, like your CRM, and then external data to really feed the intelligence. We believe that in the future, our companies will really have an intelligence that sits in the middle of the organization. A lot of times now you might think of your CRM being the hub of the organization and really being the record keeper of what's happening with clients. But in a lot of ways, it is just a record of what has happened. And what we're moving to is these intelligence that can actually help us see what might happen based on all the inputs. It's again what a human does in that small firm of just being able to intuit from all these different pieces and say, hey, something's going on with that account. We're really moving towards this more proactive intelligence at the hub of our organizations.
Very nice. You're onto something. You're onto a fun mission. So instead of using the CRM to look at the past, you have AI to predict more of the future. And any of us that has a roster of clients understands the pain of 80-20, where you have that 20% of clients that are just kind of problematic in one way or another. And it would be good to know where to focus our attention, what to work on, what to fix. That way, like the lookalike of our ideal clients is replicated in that way. And so help us understand, like, who's using this? Like, do you have like a fun case study of someone that like plugged in all this data, email, Zoom calls, structured data, CRM, all that, put it together and gave them some kind of insights to change their trajectory?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, one thing that we've built this for is not just account managers on the ground, which it certainly will help them, like you said, not just let email dictate what they're doing today or which customer is yelling the loudest, but really help them prioritize what actions they should take, but all the way up to the very senior leaders in the organization of actually being able to get those insights and that intelligence across the entire portfolio. So sometimes it's hard to see through the forest, actually see, oh man, there are connection points across the organization that, hey, if we fix this thing operationally, we could really move the needle in our business. And those things we're really excited about as well.
And what kind of missing connections are showing up?
Yeah. Well, here's one great example, one use case from one of our customers. They have an existing company. They've acquired a new business. So right now, when you talk to professional service firms, even highly successful ones, what's happening is their account managers are going customer by customer and marking it red, yellow, green. I've heard it over and over again. And that is highly subjective and manual and delayed. It's basically a subjective outcome of what they feel like is happening in the relationship. But they have acquired another company. And there's a lot, even with it being subjective, you've now got a different company that, the way that they intuit different things, their red, yellow, green may be highly different than the existing company. And so having Known Well across all of those individuals, across those two companies that are coming together, has been a huge win for them because they are able to see very quickly how they're doing in one side of the organization versus the other side of the organization. It basically gives this objective, real-time look at what's happening and where they need to deploy resources.
And do you have any sort of fun surprises to share along these lines? Because that's always where the fun is, right? As you say, well, I feed it in my data and I have my expectations about where to deploy my resources or what to do differently. But sometimes the AI, it has like a kind of a magic black box effect on it. So what have you seen or what have your customers seen about just the unexpected surprises using this tool?
One thing that it may not be exactly what you're asking, but I've seen it multiple times where mainly CEOs in these organizations when they get in and they see what Known Well is producing, these insights, it's almost immediate that they're like, oh man, we need to do something about that. We can fix that by X, Y, and Z. But because it wasn't ever surfaced to them, they just weren't able to see it in a way that they could problem solve it. And so over and over again, things as simple as basically a process issue with something not getting there in delayed time. The CEO is able to see that really quickly and problem solve it in real time, which has been incredible to see. That's happened multiple times against multiple use cases of just seeing the intelligence in a really objective way has helped them really look at how am I going to drive this business forward and drive their strategy differently.
And that seems to be a recurring theme in our conversation here, the human bias of well, you have your judgment, someone else has this judgment,
Yeah.
you acquire some company and whatever was brought along, they have their own kind of judgment. It helps to have that objectivity. And then also, I mean, people are weird about receiving advice and who the advice comes from, and you have to be careful about like presenting and selling your idea, getting someone on board. But if you say, "Hey, the cold hard tool, the computer cloud machine says here's our conclusions," that in a way that's a little easier to take because you're saying, "Well, it's data driven, not necessarily on feelings or opinions." That might be a little better way to get the message across, to act differently. And you're also mentioning about acting in a timely fashion, right? Using this real-time data, making the change before the problem's bigger, before you lose the client, before the budget's wrong. And that's some really exciting stuff. And so, as you know, being a business owner is hard, right? And building something and getting people to use it. So I'm curious about your awkward growing pains. So has there been difficulty in getting the product work or in getting the word out? Like, what sort of struggles have you personally gone through getting Known Well on board with people and companies?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I mean, as someone, this was actually my first time in a startup from 0 to 1. And it's a unique season. So if you've never experienced it, well, even as I say that, it's not for everyone because it is a unique journey. And some people might call it throwing spaghetti at the wall, but in so many ways, it's so experimental of really trying to hone in on who your ICP is. And then that constant experimental mindset of developing messages and really understanding your customer in a way to find things that resonate or not. And that or not is really powerful as well. And so, that is, it's hard. It's hard going from 0 to 1. That's why it's a fun journey, but it's not for everybody. And I would say experiencing that for the first time, it is that mental resiliency over and over again of when something doesn't work the way that you thought it would, to have the stamina to keep pushing ahead. And so, yes, certainly times that we've tried things that didn't work, times that we've thought something didn't work, that all of a sudden, a new, change in the audience, all of a sudden it does work. And just sticking with it over time and really keeping track of those adjustments that we're making until we get to the point that we start to see traction. And we've been in a really great season of selling new customers right in our ICP that we're really excited about.
Well, you're mentioning something here that I probably forget about once a month and then remember again and forget again, which is this idea of that your customers are people and that they have their own needs, and we need to kind of recurringly think about their fears and frustrations and what interests them and what gets them to take action. And it's really easy to fall back on making your product really good, which is important, but like that's not the focus, right? Or on your marketing, your messaging, but sometimes that's hit or miss. And so you're saying that sometimes if it's maybe like this feature that really excites you doesn't excite them, or maybe it needs to be developed better or presented better, or the timing's not right. And so instead of driving ourselves crazy, you think, well, who are these people that I'm trying to help? And perhaps that helps to motivate you through the frustrations when things don't always
Yeah.
go the way you want. And let's be real, it's life. You always have unexpectedness happening all the time, but you're like, well, who am I seeking to help and serve, and where are they stuck without me, and now my solution can get them there, and everyone will be happy once we solve some of these hard problems, but there's a reward after we're getting to the other side. And so, speaking of getting to that other side, what are you working on now? What's the current like personal challenge, or what's your business striving to as far as like new customers, new features, is what's happening headed towards the future?
Yeah, we're really, we just closed our seed round in September. And so we're really excited about having that influx of funding and really being able to build out the product to the next level. And, unlike a lot of AI tools, and there's so many right now, and they're great, but most of them are for individual productivity. And hopefully, as you've probably caught on, what we're building at Knownwell is not at that execution level, it's at the operations level of the organization. And so it really hits on how do we work together. And I think there's going to be more and more tools that you'll see, native AI technology at that level, which is exciting. But I think we're one of those companies. And so we're really excited about deploying more of our operational insights within organizations, and deploying more of turning those intelligence, those insights into action inside these companies. And so that's what we're building right now, and working with our early access customers on. And I would say for me personally, and I think this is good for all of us marketers, when things get tough or we get stuck, getting with our customers can unlock so much. Matter of fact, when you were talking just a moment ago, there's a piece of our product that is a relationship map. It's kind of almost like a heat map for your relationships and the customer, all the relationships within your customer. And it just shows the health of each one of those different connections. And I honestly, when I saw it in our product, I was like, oh, this is cool. But our customers loved it, because they are so mindful in professional services. People is what their business is. It's people serving companies. And so, but had I not been on a call with a customer to see them like, oh, wow, this is amazing, I wouldn't have known that. So just a note for all of us, like it's so helpful to get with our customers and just hear from them specifically to help us drive and get unstuck, get to the next level.
That's powerful too, because like, yeah, I was thinking about the like motivation terms, but you're saying also just to get those insights and to see what makes your customers come alive. And
Yeah,
in tech and programming, that's huge, right? Looking over your customer's shoulder and just seeing what they do, or if they're trying to find some menu, or you're like, hey, I didn't even know people use that feature, and that's
right.
huge. And these are some great insights, and just it's easy to not know or forget or to ignore some of this fundamental advice, but that's what will get us through and get us to some of these goals, and have us build the company of our dreams. And so in our
Exactly.
last few minutes here, I'm always looking for, okay, like my guests came here and they have all these things, they have all these interesting stories and advice, but sometimes I don't know exactly the right question to ask. So in our conversation here, Courtney, is there like a missing, hidden, invisible question? Is there something that you wish I would ask you, but I just don't know how to ask it?
Um, I will phrase it like this. I think there is having an understanding of where we are in the AI journey, where we are at with the technology, where in whatever business you're in, at whatever level, is incredibly powerful. And so that's more the answer to the question you that I think might be helpful for people, is just to understand we are at the very beginning and really starting to understand where the technology is going to go. For example, I mentioned earlier of moving up to that operations level in a business. We've been in the really the execution level with things like ChatGPT and coding tools. I mean, there's innumerable at this point. But understanding the levels of business and how AI is going to be deployed as the technology progresses is incredibly powerful.
I agree. That's helpful to think about. What are those marketplace cycles? What is it going to
Yep.
evolve into? Where is it going to be used? How is it going to mature? It's enough to drive someone crazy, but that's why we need to be informed over time and not have to play catch up. It's never fun
Exactly.
to cram for a test, but if you just do a little bit of studying over time and seeing what interests you, what your competitors are doing, what you can tap into, then that's a helpful dose over time to just help us to stay informed, to stay up to date, so that way our companies don't get left behind with AI. That way we know that these amazing tools such as Known Well exist, and that we can tune into your podcast as well. That way we can just stay up to date on what's happening with AI. And so speaking to that, we're at the point in the show where we're saying, okay, well, Courtney had some great advice. Known Well sounds amazing. She gave me a little bit of some homework assignments, things to think about in my own business, but that only gets us so far, right? That only gives us a little bit of a taste. So to find out more about you and your company and your podcast and Known Well and just any other next steps, what should an eager, engaged podcast listener do at this point? Where should they go to find out more about you and what you have going on?
Yeah, well, you can find us at knownwell.com. And specifically, I'd love to point you towards a demo of what we're building, of our platform. Our team would love to talk to you, if nothing else, to get your feedback on what we're building. So again, you can do that at knownwell.com. And our podcast is called AI Know-How. It's really for executives and helping break down how to think about AI in your business. And you can find me personally at LinkedIn at Court Baker.
Very nice. So that is knownwell.com, KNOWNWELL.com. I'm sure you're a podcaster. You spell things out. Once I start spelling, I'm like, oh, I hope I don't mess a letter here. Knownwell.com. And then the AI Know How podcast.
Yes.
And then Courtney Baker on LinkedIn. And so as we're checking out those resources, as we're going there, again, podcasting inside baseball, it's always nice to have the reels, the clips. And so this is where I ask my guest about a fun quote or lesson that has helped them in their life or their business that they can pass on to us. So for viral clip reel purposes, Courtney Baker, what is a fun quote or lesson that has served you that you can pass on to us?
I would say whatever level of the organization you're in right now, you need to be setting time aside to get your hands on these AI tools. And this is probably specifically for executives, because if you're on the ground, you may be already doing that. But if you're an executive, make sure that you're also setting time each week to get your hands on these tools so that as the technology progresses, you understand the capabilities.
Very nice advice. Stay informed, get your hands on these tools, experiment, play around, get some results, because another tool will come along in a few weeks or months, and that way you can just get in this good habit, especially as you said, at the executive level, of knowing what's possible, knowing what your business should be doing. And the next step to get informed is, as we said, go to knownwell.com, go there, get that demo scheduled. That way you can play around, use that tool, watch a video, see how it's done. And then the AI Know How podcast, because AI has changed so much in these last few years. Who knows where it's going? Who knows what will be possible in the coming decades? Our brains can't even imagine, but you can find out from Courtney and her company and her team. Knownwell.com, AI Know How podcast. Very nice speaking with you today, Courtney.
You too. Thanks for having me.